right, welcome to another episode of the LogiCast. My name is BlankaKong, and I'm joined by Gunner Eos today. It's going to be a two-man episode, so get ready. And if you've read the title of the video and seen the thumbnail, this is going to be kind of I guess, a controversial topic, but it came up. We're going to be referencing a Gamer Rant article on just the air quotes controversy of like the female main protagonist of the latest Fable game that was recently showcased, and the article talks about just how females are like kind of represented in gaming today, and like how there's basically two camps. One is, I guess, of a more traditional perspective of like they want female characters to be beautiful and voluptuous and just perfect and just be the fantasy. And then there's another camp where, well, they don't want those things. They want more, I guess, grounded, realistic looks, which isn't as appealing to the eye. So, and the article goes into some other things, but that's the general gist of it. They mention some other games, and like they mention Horizon Zero Dawn is like the other, well, Horizon Forbidden West specifically, because that character, at least from the clips that I've seen and the images that they show in this article, like it is not the most flattering image of Aloy compared to like Zero Dawn's like marketing or whatever, where she looked just lighter, younger, more vibrant, just more beautiful in general. So yeah, that's the article. It's going to be linked in the description in case you want to read through it. And we're just going to talk about it. We're just going to talk about that. We're going to talk about female characters in video games, and we'll mention some attractive ones, some not so attractive ones, and we'll talk about our preferences and what we look for or don't look for when it comes to this particular topic. So, Gunner, I'll let you get your opinions in there first if you want, or your response to the article.
Well, I guess I'll reference the article, so that's kind of like the main factual crux, the established media piece that we're introducing to the audience. It brought up some points, which I do have to. I find myself in the middle. I'm one of those guys. When I play a video game, I usually pick a female character. I know that's a whole nother like subtopic. That's a podcast in and of itself. But when I pick these characters, and let's say they have a character creation option, I usually try to make a female character that I find aesthetically pleasing. When I played Final Fantasy 14 on a regular basis, I mostly played as female characters, because if I'm going to play as something, if I'm going to play a game for hundreds of hours, multiple times a week, me personally, I'd rather see something aesthetically pleasing. And before I get shouted down, I've seen and know personally women outside of the video game, biological women, that they played male characters, and they would make their characters aesthetically pleasing to them. So if they're like super tall, medium size, buff, not so buff, whatever that particular woman found attractive or aesthetically pleasing to her, she would make her male character reflect that. So it's done on both sides. But to kind of like put this back on the point, most people, when they play a video game, a fantasy video game especially, which Fable is, games like Fable and Dragon's Dogma and Final Fantasy, these are games set in fantasy worlds. So they don't want to play someone that looks like them, one, or someone they would see in the quote unquote real world in their daily life. This is fantasy. So if I want to see an attractive person, I want to play as an attractive person, that's what they go for. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And, some people won't agree with this, But I do think there is a push, or has been a push for quite a while, to have very let's use nice words, homely women. Just, I guess, women that don't fall into the category of traditionally beautiful. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but it feels like now the people like me who like to see more aesthetically pleasing characters are the ones being labeled as something we're not. Like,
Yeah.
I don't expect every woman I meet to look like fucking Trish from Devil May Cry, or to look like Samus from Metroid. That's it's an unrealistic expectation. Women like that exist, but I'm not expecting every woman to be like that. But now people like us are being villainized, and it's seen as a bad thing to want traditionally, and I like to emphasize that word because attractiveness is different for everyone, traditionally attractive female characters. And let's be real, ladies, this only tends to work one way, because I don't see anybody gallivanting for, can we bring back the male main character with a beer gut? I don't usually see that. So let's call a spade a spade. It's usually one side that wants to keep the status quo, but then bashes anybody else if I want to have a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, voluptuous woman. So that's my first rant, my first talking point for the podcast.
All right. So what I'll say is there's nuance to like this particular topic. So there are different camps. It's not just two camps overall, right? There are definitely like what I'm gonna call kind of creepy demographic of players, most, probably 99% male, who want the power fantasy female main character. And an example I'll use for a game that I do plan to pick up that did have some controversy surrounded around it was Project Eve. So Project Eve was a game that was announced a few years ago, and it's a action adventure hack and slash, think Devil May Cry, think Nier kind of gameplay. And the characters, very pretty, slender, voluptuous, pretty sure Asian character, right? And I think she's an android, so she's not even like a human. And when that game was released, or not released, but revealed, there was controversy. It was like, oh, why do characters have to look this way? I remember seeing an article. I don't know the article on hand. If I find it, I will link it. But I remember seeing an article talk about how this is game design from like 2005 or something like that, and we should be past that, and we shouldn't over sexualize females in video games, blah blah blah. So I could see that, right? There are gamers who want that, right? And I don't mind that. I'm not against that, but I don't necessarily want that every female to be that in every video game. Like one of my favorite Resident Evil character is Jill Valentine. And I like Jill, not from just 3, but from the first Resident Evil. I picked her mainly because she had a gun, if I'm being honest with you. And Chris didn't. But in playing with her, I grew attached to the Jill character, and then Resident Evil 3 came out, and she was a little more sexualized for sure, and her outfit didn't make any sense for the situation that she was in, but whatever, right?
That's true.
But she wasn't like a damsel in distress. She was definitely a strong female character, and I think has maintained that throughout the Resident Evil franchise history. Anyway, so back to my original point. There are gamers, mostly guys, who want that power fantasy female. The females who are just like you'd only find in a comic book or in a video game. They want that, right? I don't necessarily subscribe to it. I'm not against it. I'm cool with it. Because again, we're talking video games here, people. But there's those guys. Then there are guys who are like okay with more grounded female characters. I'm thinking characters like Lara Croft in the later Tomb Raider games, like not PS1 Tomb Raider, but more,
PS4.
PS3, PS4 generation of Tomb Raider, where Laura was very grounded. She was still a strong character. She wasn't unattractive at all. She was a beautiful character, but she was definitely a force to be reckoned with, right? I think that's like the perfect template for what a female character should be, at least a female lead. Then there's the other side. The other side is like people who want female characters, to look super ugly or just like not beautiful. I don't want to say ugly. Ugly is the wrong word. Just not beautiful, right? Homely. Homely is a great word. And in order to not offend anyone, I think, or not to like, over sexualize, like it's like too far to the other side. There's that camp. And I think the two extremes are just too extreme, if that makes any sense. Like, I think the people who are like, I just want to play a game and I just want my character to look cool and attractive. Like, this even goes for male characters. Like, when I play a game where you create a character, I create a male character and I try to make the character look like me, right? Typically. Sometimes I'll go like, you know what, I want to make something different. But like, I try to make the character look cool. Like, I want my character to be buff. I want my character to be tall. I want my character to be strong. I want my character to look like a badass, whatever that looks like, right? That's because it's a fucking game. So it's like, of course I want the character to look cool. Sometimes maybe I'll get a little funny and trolly and I'll create like some ugly abomination for fun, just for, shits and giggles or whatever. But like, generally speaking, I like my character to look cool, especially if it's an online game where other people are going to see my character. I want my character to like represent,
Right.
So,
and your definition of cool is different from somebody else's definition, who's different from another, blah blah blah. Yeah,
there's definitely nuance to that. So there are different camps, and I think the two extremes, the people who want female characters to just look homely all the time, and then the guys who just like want every character to look like Trish from Devil May Cry. Like, these camps are like, those are the extremes. I'm like, you guys are ridiculous. Like, both can exist, but like, the fact that these two camps always find a way to fight each other online is just, I don't know, it's just silly to me.
Well, I do agree. Like, extreme thinking is just not beneficial to either camps, because you'll never be satisfied. If you have an unrealistic or extremely high expectation, the game doesn't fulfill it. It's a shit game to you. But I will bring, because the article mentions this character, I will bring Aloy from the Horizon series back into this, because it is a known fact, a statistical fact, you can prove it, that her face structure looked one way in Zero Dawn, and then it looked another way in Forbidden West. And there's really no denying that. She used to have slimmer cheeks. Her body proportions were different, and then all of a sudden her cheeks were fatter in Forbidden West. In Forbidden West. In Forbidden West, and her body proportions were changed. Now, one can say, oh, if they're keeping them within the world, this is a time thing. This is a there's an actual image that we'll show you guys how Aloy, just like her cheeks, really, she has like thinner cheeks, and her face overall is like a more angular, thinner face, as opposed to Forbidden West, where she has a more rounded face, fatter cheeks. And this wasn't a huge time gap between the first and the second game. So a lot of people, myself included, I'll just speak for myself, saw this as a deliberate change by one or more people on the development team to, in their minds, make Aloy less attractive for the Coomer brains out there, I guess. Because if you guys know anything about the Horizon series, this is a post-apocalyptic world. There is no such things as supermodels. So Aloy was like just barefaced, no foundation, no makeup, no Instagram filters, but she looked fine in the first game. In the second game, she looks markedly different. So that's where to summarize everything, that's where I sit in a camp where it's just like some of these characters and some of these decisions, like the main character, or I guess the main or female main character for Fable, that's done on purpose. That's done by a group of people with a certain mindset that goes against what they feel is the quote unquote unrealistic beauty standard. And because now they are in charge of these videos and in charge of these pieces of media, they are now putting in what this is what they see as a normal woman. And they're butting heads with their consumer base, the people who are going to buy Fable. So, all that
Yeah.
long-winded
So
rant to
go
say,
ahead.
like,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I
no, I
thought.
was going to say, the whole long-winded rant to wrap it up is that in certain cases, I mean, you did bring up a good point, Kong, how there's like extremes on both sides. One wants every female to be a supermodel. The other one wants every woman to kind of just be a man with long hair, if I'm going to be blunt. But,
Jesus. I mean, you're
the,
not
the,
wrong, but
I mean, hey, I
yeah.
mean, there is a certain group, in my opinion, of malicious actors who, for reasons we can kind of speculate on, are making or changing characters to look a certain way that's right to them.
So what's the end game there though? So like, okay, let's. This might be too fucking red pilled for me. I don't know, but like, why do that in the first place? Like, what's the end game, or what would be the gain to like fucking um making characters, specifically female characters, look worse or less appealing in your games? Like, why do that? Like, what is the goal here? Is it a cultural, like, is it people trying to shift the the culture of like what is considered beautiful? Like, is it this like psyop thing, or is that really what's going on here?
My opinion is yes, you got it right. It's certain groups of people who are now in positions of quote unquote power in relation to this topic, the video game industry. These are the people doing the art. These are the directors of the game. These are people who are inherited franchises like Tomb Raider, like the Fable series, like Saints Row, for example. That now that they have these things, this might be too fucking tinfoil hat, but hey, whatever. This is how I feel. Now that they have these franchises, they feel that, you know what? Now I can make a woman the way I think women actually are, or if they are a woman, this is how I actually look. You see a lot of these characters in these games tend to be self-inserts,
Yeah.
um, of like people on the art team, and like so I think, yeah, I think it is people in the video game industry who are in charge of these new IPs or franchises trying to shift the culture away from how the game industry was in like the early 2000s, maybe mid 2000s to 90s and down. Where if you were a woman, you were like a bombshell, drop dead gorgeous, and there wasn't such a thing as a average looking, normal looking woman.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, uh, I was gonna say, like, if you played games like fucking Morrowind or Oblivion, like, there's some rough looking fucking female character models, but that's more so art style or like just limitations for like models back in the day, and less so
Right.
an
Well, I guess I
agenda.
should preference that my personal gaming experience was mainly JRPG focused. So I grew up with characters like Tifa and Aerith and um what's the main character? Ada from Parasite Eve, and typically Japanese-inspired video games where they make their females very. I don't want to say anime-inspired because that'd be incorrect, but they tend to make very pretty, very beautifully aesthetically pleasing characters, both male and female. Like we could talk about the male characters from the Final Fantasy series. Hell, look at 16 that just came out. I mean, he's what Square Enix defines as rugged man. And is their rugged feature, he's got a 5 o'clock shadow, but he's still got perfect skin. So
yeah, and long flowing hair.
Right. So, but he's got a 5 o'clock shadow, so he doesn't shave. He's a rebel.
Listen, man. Listen, the character looks cool. Like for sure. I think that's a good looking character model. Good looking guy, right? I'm not into guys, but I can. I have eyes,
but
right?
My gaming background comes from that. So when I look at the women in gaming, I think of Tifa, I think of Aerith, I think of characters like that. Like if you know Tifa from OG7, not this garbage remake, you can quote me on that. Tifa looks way different, and you look up old Tifa and you'll see why a lot of people, especially pre-pure teenage me, was like, Tifa number one.
Well, let's just call a spade a spade. They like reduced her boobs or something, right?
They did, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's my personal background, but I will put my opinion out there, and I will say that I believe that this is being done with a level of maliciousness, but mostly to change the culture, like you said, 100%.
Interesting.
For me personally.
No, I mean I could believe it, but so okay, we kind of did like a pre-prep before this conversation, just looking stuff up and like kind of gathering our thoughts and like getting our kind of our ducks in a row. And I mentioned I don't really think this way. Like the way that some of these people think, where it's like, oh, there's not enough female representation, or there's not enough this and not enough that. I don't care about any of that shit, right? Like, for me, it's like, listen, does the game look cool? Is the game fun? That's it. Like, does the game look cool? Is it fun? That's all I give a shit about, right? Main character female, main character male, it doesn't matter. Like, it can matter, but, like, it typically doesn't matter to me. Like, I mentioned Resident Evil 3, and Jill being, like, my favorite character. Like, I think she's a great fucking character. Like, she, not to sound like cliche, but she's, like, definitely a strong character. She's been through a lot of shit. So it's like, I can respect that. Like, wow, this chick is, like, she's tough, And I grew up in a time where, like, you don't see that very often. Like, that was a rare thing to find, like, a tough female who can, like, keep up with the guys. It's like, yeah, okay. Like, there's a newfound respect for that. And, like, now, in today's age, it's, like, more common, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, but I feel like a lot of it is forced and it's not genuine. And I think and I think that's my and I think that's maybe your problem with it, right? What do you want to say about that? Like, I'll let you cook, brother.
No, I agree. It's definitely forced. Like, you cannot convince me that they did not look at the character reveal or the character that they were going to reveal for the Fable game that's coming out, and they were like, this is gonna piss off some people on the internet, and that's what I want. You can't tell me one or more or potentially all the people on the development team were thinking that, because I don't believe you if you try to tell me that. Like, it's 100% done on purpose, and it feels if it is done to kind of get back at the hashtag gamer bros, then you're just wasting an entire video game to get back at the one or two or three guys on Twitter that said get back in the kitchen. Like, I don't get it. It
seems kind of weird. Well, okay, so all right, I have something to say about Fable 4 and the main character. but I just wanted to like wrap up my point from before. I know you
Okay,
had
yeah,
like
go
a
ahead.
response. So like, okay. So for me, I don't really care, right? If ugly female character, attractive female character, like that's kind of like whatever to me. I can get past that. If I had to mention another game, a game that I played like 2 years ago now, that I really really enjoyed was Ken: A Bridge of Spirits, right? Female main lead, right? And it's a little girl character, so like, and it has like the art style for that game is like, kind of like Pixar, very
Right.
very high end, animation style. um I did like these thoughts didn't like I didn't look at the character like, oh, she's hot or whatever, like,
Well,
no, I was
I
just,
hope not.
well, it's a little girl first of all, or like a teenage girl first of all, that's
No, I
not
get what you're
okay.
saying. Yeah, I
But
get what you're
like these are thoughts that never ran through my mind whatsoever, for both reasons, right? A, I'm not a fucking,
saying.
you know I don't do that, and then B, I I'm playing it for the game, dude. Like, that's what matters to me. Um, so I don't know, like that. Maybe I think differently, and I just came up in a different era, and I just can't really understand this petty fucking online war. But and
Yeah.
anyway, to reference what you just mentioned about the Fable 4 reveal with the female character who presumably is a protagonist. I did, before we started, I did my prep work. I was thinking to myself, because I played the first two Fable games for sure, and I remember only being able to play male characters. But I had to look it up to make sure, because this was a long time ago that I played these games, 20 years ago now. Fucking Fable 1 on
Mm.
original Xbox. Yeah, so Fable has always only had male characters as an option. Like, you can only play as a male lead in each game. All three games, you can only play as a guy. Um, and so, in finding that out, and making sure that that was true, I thought to myself, well, maybe this is definitely a first for the Fable franchise, right? A playable female lead. I think that's good. I don't think that's bad at all. I think that's, more options is definitely better. Especially, there's more female gamers in the space now, that they should
Yeah.
have that option. I think that's only fair. The other part is, well, if we're looking at the Fable universe, or just fantasy, European fantasy, if you got a female warrior, or a warrior in general, who's like fist fighting and like, getting into like physical combat with creatures and orcs and all this other stuff, you're gonna be pretty fucked up. Like, you're gonna look rugged. So maybe that's what they were going for. Maybe it's a mix of A and B. Maybe it's both the logistics of like living in that world and being that kind of fighter, and also this agenda piece that it's like, oh, we want to make ugly girls more attractive to gamer bros, or we want to like dunk on the gamer bros by making the characters that they have to play with ugly. I don't know which one it is. Maybe it's a little bit of both, but
The,
I don't
I
know.
would
It's hard
I
to
would
say.
agree. I would agree with that if it was being done across the globe. If it was being done in multiple spheres of gaming. If we look to the east, now I know some people would say, well, it's happening in the east too, which to a certain degree, yes. But if the game that you mentioned earlier in the podcast, Project Eve, that's from the east, and she looks very different than anything a Western game company has developed or is currently developing. Right? She fits more of that like attractive, sexy, voluptuous, um, traditionally attractive female archetype. And it's
Yeah.
mostly the East that is still preserving that. Like, they're still making games like that, where it's only like seemingly Western developers that are pumping out like your Abbeys, your Aloys, your main protagonist for Fable 4. And it's just like it's only being done on one, I guess, continent or hemisphere of gaming. So normally I would agree with you, but I'm only seeing it come from one side. Like, I don't know. It's just I can't necessarily go all in on your argument, even though I do agree that you shouldn't really give a shit about the character and how they look. And another good point which I'm noticing that you're bringing up is like a lot of these characters they tout that they're modeled after real people, but when you look at the real person and you look at the character, it's like, bro, are you sure they were modeled on the same person? Because I don't believe you.
Yeah, that's kind of why I brought it up, because this was my next point. To support your claim of like this is like a malicious, like intentional attack, for lack of a better term. I brought up an image of this character, Dina, from The Last of Us 2. Now, I'm not a Last of Us 2 fan. I know that's probably going to upset some people.
Oh my god!
For multiple reasons. I love the first game. The second game, I think, dropped the ball in a lot of different areas. But anyway, I did watch like a full gameplay of it just to kind of like educate myself on the game and just to see if it was worth the damn or not. But anyway, Dina, the main not the main character. She's a supporting role.
Oh yeah.
She's like Ellie's girlfriend in the game, and I remember seeing an interview with the actress that depicts her, and I remember thinking, wow, she's it's a very beautiful woman. But then you look at the character model and go, man, they really like they didn't capture her too well, my opinion. Like they made her nose bigger, and they just kind of like made these like small decisions to kind of like, I guess, dumb down the actress's beauty.
That's my take on it. Yeah.
So I think there's definitely examples supporting what you're saying, and I think I don't think you're wrong, dude. Like I think you're onto something, and these are things that I've noticed, but I've just kind of like brushed under the rug. I'm like, okay, I don't really care about The Last of Us 2, so whatever. But it's definitely a thing that seems to be happening, and that's one example that I thought of. And I also brought up like the face-to-face comparison of like Aloy in Zero Dawn versus Forbidden West, and like there's a
and I think it's funny enough if you check out the actual real life person who's supposed to be like the inspiration for Aloy, she also it's the same thing, it's the same situation.
Let's see, Aloy actress. Sorry for the clicking, guys.
We do it live.
Oh, Ashley Birch. Oh, I've actually met Ashley Birch in real life. Yeah, she's super attractive, super beautiful. Like, in a respectful way, not not in a creepy way or whatever. Yeah, she's very attractive. She's a very beautiful woman.
So like you see where like I have a hard like it's hard to kind of fully get on board when you just it's not hard. You dig a little bit and you go, oh, there is some changes being made.
Yeah, I mean, man, this sucks, bro. Like, I hate. Oh man, I just want my games to be games, man.
No, I get you. And like I said, I'm over here with the weebs, so it's for me, it's easy to ignore it because just like I don't care. No disrespect to Fable, but I didn't grow up playing it, so I have no attachment to it. It's on the Xbox. I don't own an Xbox, and a lot of modern AAA games are just like, I'm not interested in you. It's not because it's a woman playing you. You're just you're not a good game to me. So, I'm gonna go play freaking Etrian Odyssey, or I'm gonna go play fucking what did I just buy recently? Front Mission. So like, that's robots. So it's easy for me personally to ignore, and you just like don't give a shit about that. But in my opinion, it is being done.
It's yeah. I'd have to agree with you. I can't deny it. Like there's a lot of evidence in front of me to prove that this is like kind of like a underground movement. I mean, listen, I will I get the new Fable game? I don't know yet. I haven't seen enough to justify whether or not this is like a actual.
They
showed
showed like little bits of gameplay, right?
Yeah, the gameplay wasn't. It
Yeah.
was sprinkled throughout the narrative
Yeah.
of the giants cutscene or whatever. I don't know the actor who played the giant in the. I know he's a famous actor. I just don't. I don't. I can't reference.
I think he's like
work.
big in the UK, so we wouldn't know.
I'm filthy American. Yeah.
Yeah. We wouldn't know in fucking Eagle Land.
Oh well. I mean, I recognize the guy, but I just don't. There's no connections that I can make. Anyway, there wasn't enough gameplay, like true gameplay, for me to go, okay, this looks like something I want to buy or play. There was no release date. I think maybe they said 2024. I'm not even sure. But release dates are fucking. You got to take it with a grain of salt these days.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. If it's anything like the old Fable games, I should be able to get into it. But
if it's character creation, you can make a guy or a girl, and they just wanted to show off a woman because this is the first Fable game that allows the option of male or female, then that's fine. Like, you can make your guy character or you can make a woman character. I'm assuming there'll be plenty of customization options to make him or her the way you do. But it's about like the old saying goes, first impressions matter. And like the first impression of this Fable game rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that, and I think Microsoft Studios. I mean, they got some ground to cover when it comes to like gaining favor with, the hardcore gamer audience, and maybe doing stuff like this isn't ideal for them. I don't know, right? We could talk about male characters real quick. I know the article mentions Thor from God of War Ragnarok and how what did they say? They said something along the lines of like let me look at it because I don't want to misquote it. It's noticeable how gamers almost never air quotes fix male characters. There was some controversy around the way Thor looked in God of War Ragnarok, which is ridiculous in its own merits, and it has certainly happened before, but never in such a high profile way. So like there's this this goes back to what I was saying before about the extremes of like the gamer guys who like want all the female characters to look a certain way, to be supermodel, fucking, just top tier beauty, and then that's never the case for male characters, and I think that is because, well, quite frankly, the gaming space is populated by mostly guys and has been for a long time. That has shifted a bit, right? There's definitely way more female gamers in the space now compared to maybe 20 years ago, which I welcome. I'm okay with that, personally, but I think males still dominate the space by a very large margin. So that that expectation is going to be there, and like I think for those guys, I'm going to speak for them for a second. Listen, if they hear me say this and I'm wrong, then the comment section is there. Go for it. They don't care like what the male characters look like because, quite frankly, they're not attracted to males. So that's to them. It's like whatever. Like the male characters look like whatever. It's like I'm not looking at this character with the same set of eyes that I would look at a female character. So for me personally, I kind of. I don't want to say it's the same. Like, I don't look at males and females exactly the same in video games. Certainly, I look at female characters with a different set of eyes, but like, I also understand that this is a fictional world and this isn't real, and it's a game. So, those lines aren't blurred for me like it is for some people. And I don't mean that offensively, even though some people are going to take that offensively. But like, I'm just calling it for what it is. I'm just being real here. Like, it's a game, bro. Like it ain't real, that level of care isn't there for the male characters simply because it's just it's an attraction thing, right? So
Yeah.
it is what it is. Like, I thought Thor from God of War Ragnarok looks fine. Like, I know he was big and fat or whatever, but like that's just Thor. Like, whatever. Like, he drinks and he fights. Like, that's what he does. Like, I thought the look was fine, but I don't know. What
Yeah.
are your thoughts on that?
No, I think it's just really hard for me personally because I can't. One would say I'm terminally online a lot. I can't look at the video game as just like the standalone piece of media. I always have to look behind the curtain. I have to look like, who's making this? Why are they making this? Oh, this is their certain belief system. I see it's coming into their work and their art, and they want to put a certain spin on things. I see that. I wish I could just like look at a, a game and just see the product, the video game in front of me, but it's just I know that there's more nuance that goes into these things, and I just know where a lot of the Western video game industry is at currently. So it's just like I cannot look at a certain character and not go, there is a reason you made this character a certain way and premiered and made this character the initial impression of your brand new video game or your brand new video game um in a recurring series. Like you knew what you were doing when you showed this character off, and I know what you're doing by showing this character off. So it's like that's where my mind goes. So it's hard for me to just like I get it's a game, it's a
I
game
get it.
world.
I get it.
Yeah.
Like,
But I know that like
you've gone too deep and like
right, there are real
yeah.
people behind this game world with real intentions and beliefs that don't necessarily jive with my own, but unfortunately it comes out in their product. If they had beliefs about certain things but it didn't show up in their video game, then I wouldn't mind. I could play it, and if me and the lead art designer had a conversation, we'd find out we don't get along at all. But I can play their video game and go, you know what? That was a good video game. I enjoyed it. My $70 was well spent. But these people play their hands in the fucking launch trailer. It's like, I see where you stand. So like for me, it's hard to kind of like differentiate art from the artist in that respect because I feel they're using their art, which I guess that everybody uses their art to do that, but they're using their art to kind of like push their views. But as opposed to like if you painted something but you never sell it, you can have whatever messages you want in it. But these are people making a product with the intent of selling that product to a wider audience. So if you upset the bulk of that audience, it's going to result in your product not doing well. And we've seen it with a bunch of games. Forspoken had her that character was obnoxious for multiple reasons, not just her looks. Where's Forspoken 2? Doesn't exist because the studio's gone now. So it's like you piss off your major fan base. These are the people who are going to buy your product.
Or not buy your product.
Or not buy your product
More
in the case of
importantly.
Forspoken. Yeah. So I mean,
I hear you. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, but I feel if they, again, tinfoil hat on, I feel they are content with killing as many game franchises as they need to in order to change the culture. Because once they've changed the culture and they push those quote unquote bad people that they don't want in their gaming community, then the only people that are left are people that agree with how they perceive things. So it's kind of like we'll end the world and then build it back up from the ashes. That might be too much for a video game, but I don't know.
I mean, that might be a small part to a bigger plan, but I see what you're saying. I just don't think it'll work. Like, I don't. I think majority of the people who engage in the hobby are not either susceptible to that or just not wired that way to to just fall for it. Like they won't. I don't see these guys complying to that. Like I don't see it changing. I don't know. Maybe it's a slow burn, long term plan. Like the younger generation will, eventually replace the current generation. So maybe in the long term, like, when guys like me and you are long gone, these opinions won't exist anymore. So there'll be less resistance to this kind of thing in 50 years or whatever.
Maybe that's what I feel. It's the long con. And hey, look, if franchises got to die, if Saints Row has to die because of it, I'm not saying Saints Row was a premier franchise, but it was a franchise that a lot of people enjoyed. Look what they did with the new one. Another game was made, died.
Well, that was bad for a lot of different reasons. Not just.
But the character design was one of them, or was a factor. But I feel my thinking is that they're content with doing that. Because eventually, in their minds, the narrative will change and it will be favorable towards them. And then they could just make whatever they want.
I don't like this. I don't like this at all. Yeah, but I think you're right, though. I think there's definitely like an invasion happening of a disingenuous force of like they're not doing it for. They're not getting into video games because they want to make video games. They're doing it as a way to influence.
I don't think most people with functioning brain cells are gonna be like, ooh, women in my Vigima games. No, never. No, those people, like we talked about, are on the extreme end of that side, and quite frankly, they're idiots. Like, I don't care if a female is the lead, as long as she's a cool character.
Well, if there's two camps within that camp though that you're mentioning. So like there are guys who want female leads in their video games, but they want their female leads to be a certain way. And then there are just like, for lack of a better term, just misogynist guys or gamers who like don't want females in any leadership role. Those are two different. I mean, they're both a part of the same shitty pile, but like those are two different categories.
Yeah. I mean, the guys who want like no women in a lead role at all, I can't abide by that. Like that's just lame. That's just a shit. That's an L take as far as I'm concerned. As long as she's a well-written character and not a Mary Sue, because I'm not a fan of Mary Sue characters.
That's fair.
You have to kind of like earn your power in a video game. You can't just like step in and suddenly, I can do the ultimate spell off the get-go. Why? Strong, independent woman. No.
Like Forspoken? What was she saying?
Exactly like Forspoken.
She was like talking to the fucking glove or whatever the fuck it was. This is like, did I just do that? I'm like freaking awesome or some shit like that. That was so cringe. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, she's like, did I just do magic? We just did magic. Did I just do It's you could find that cutscene. It's all over the internet.
Oh,
it's just like
I'm positive. Yeah.
Yeah, but like that, it's like nobody wants that.
No.
Nobody wants that. Like,
and the sales show that, right? Like the game's performance
just check your local dumpster. You might find a copy.
There's a good chance of that. So the last thing I wanted to point out was I think there's definitely what you're talking about with the agenda stuff, but I also think there's also an art style problem here too. So if you look at games, let's just look at older games for a second. Let's look at PlayStation 1 era games and 64 era games. When those games first came out or were coming out, that was revolutionary graphics at the time, right? Dare I say, we thought this was realistic. It was like, whoa, look at he's 3D, it's realistic, right? Which is nonsense, right? We look back now, it's like, wow, were we fucking blind as shit? Like that there's nothing realistic about this at all, right? This looks like a Lego character, really. But anyway, hindsight is 2020.
Yeah.
So that was like things like you mentioned Final Fantasy VII, like the original Final Fantasy VII, like the actual gameplay, not the cinematic cutscenes.
Oh yeah, those were like Block City. Yeah.
looking like Roblox characters, right? Like, let's be real.
Yeah.
But that was a product of its time, right? That was, what they could achieve at the time, given the technology available. And so I think now, in current age, because graphical fidelity has reached, I think, a plateau. Now it's like, well, now we can make these characters as realistic as possible. And so in doing so, and wanting to adapt this photorealistic art style, makes characters look less attractive. I think that's a big part of it too.
I think you hit on a very good point, and I can't find the article, so I can't source it, unfortunately, guys, because it was either an article or a YouTube video that I watched or read, and they said exactly the same thing. That it's like because now the AAA gaming industry is obsessed with photorealism and high definition, and everything has to look real. A lot of games, a lot of Western style games, have lost that art style touch that you were talking about, where you could have that artistic freedom to kind of make your characters like not unrealistically, but like just like hyper attractive. Like obviously you look at a character and go, oh, there's no way a real woman or a real man exists like that. But like, yeah, that's just an artistic choice. But now everything has to look super real. You can't do that anymore. So what you're left with is just, I guess, real people and all their flaws and their, imperfections.
In a video game, right? So
in a video game, right? Yeah.
So there are going to be certain issues with lighting, and we were looking at female characters before we started, and somebody, I think it was a YouTube video that you showed or whatever that showed me, and they had showed the character from Control, that game, and then you were like, no way, and I was like, yeah, no way, that character wasn't unattractive, and but the shot that they had chosen was really unflattering, and so we Google searched images of the main character from Control. I think her name was Jessie something, and
very 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 fed name.
Yeah, super.
That she was glowing.
A name of authority, we'll say. But yeah, we were yeah, that's just a normal looking, pretty attractive
I played
woman.
In Control, and I was like, yeah, she looks fine. She looks like a woman who grew up in a police family, who is a cop. Like she's tough and I don't have time for makeup because I'm gonna be I'm on the beat and I ain't got time for that.
Yeah,
but she wasn't unattractive.
No, of course not. And then another one, when I was just Googling shit, was somebody was complaining about Kate Diaz from Gears of War 5, and oh, this unattractive, and I'm like, really?
Yeah. I didn't even play Gears of War 5, but I know who she was. I'm like, no.
She isn't supermodel, whoa, but she ain't unattractive at all, So I don't know. I think it's definitely this is a mixed bag. It's a lot of things happening at once, but I think one of those things is definitely art style, and a good example of that.
Hit that nail on the head.
Yeah, I think Returnal is a good example of that. I don't think Celine from Returnal is necessarily unattractive. She's just an older white lady in her 50s or whatever, or late 40s. And people in their late 40s and 50s aren't as attractive as a 20-year-old or a 25-year-old.
Unless you got Illuminati money and you can get them that plastic surgery.
Come on now. So and because that game went for a real grounded, realistic art style, yeah, she's not gonna be as attractive as Lara Croft or whatever. It's of course not. That, we're talking apples and oranges here. So I don't know. And then the same could be said about games like The Last of Us, and I was gonna say Forspoken, but I think Forspoken was just ugly.
I think the entire game was ugly.
Yeah, the game was ugly. All the character models did not look good at all.
Yeah. I mean, you heard. I don't even remember that chick's name. New York, because they made a big deal.
I think her name was Freya. which is not a common name for New Yorkers, but
yeah, I know.
sure.
I mean, I met Freya getting my laundry done this morning. So it's like, yeah, that. I mean, she was insufferable because you controlled her, so you had to deal with her for the bulk of the game. But yeah, Forspoken, the entire video game was unattractive.
Yeah, and not from a sex standpoint, but just in a general like
Oh no,
artistic standpoint, like everything
I didn't mean
about
my
it.
clouds to be like naked women floating in the sky.
Yeah,
No.
it's
It
just
just didn't look.
yeah, it just
It's like,
didn't look
I
appealing
don't
at
want to
all.
be in this world. I don't want to be here.
Yeah, like another game that came out not too long ago, which I was kind of semi interested in because it was like, oh, okay, this looks like a homage, or I think they actually advertised it as such, an homage to like PS3, PS2 era hack and slash adventure games, which is like, okay, you got my attention. Wanted Dead. I think we saw it in one of the countdown lists that we were looking through.
Oh yeah, you talked. Yeah, okay,
Yeah, that game is that's another ugly game. Like every character is terrible, the acting is terrible, the writing is bad, the gameplay is like really fucking low tier. But it's $70 game, right? It's like, oh god.
yeah.
So I don't know, man. It's this current
I mean,
landscape of
just
gaming is wild. Go
one more
for it. Yeah, go
example
for it.
of because we did in that like the pre-podcast kind of like research we were doing. Like you saw that the fact that they were making a remake to Lollipop Chainsaw. Now, Lollipop Chainsaw is like it's a super niche game done by Grasshopper Studios, same people that do the No More Hero games. And what is she? She's a big boobed, blonde hair, ditzy cheerleader girl. And the same people who probably Yas Queen Fable 4 character were like, why does she have to look like that? Why is she so over sexualized? She's in high school. What is wrong with you people? And it's like, but that was the joke. You see, the joke was that she was a ditzy, bimbo, big boobed, blonde high school girl who also wields a chainsaw and kills zombies. You see, that's the joke. It's not, oh yes, let me stare at those tits so I can, whip it out. No, it's not that. That was the joke. So it's just like
humor fucking goes right over these guys'
and they
heads.
missed it. They just saw they just saw the skirt, they just saw the cleavage, and they were like, "Oh, there they go again. The Coomers are at it again." It's like that's not why people like Lollipop Chainsaw. Well, Lollipop Chainsaw didn't.
There's a minority of people who do like it for that reason.
Yeah. I mean,
but overall,
Rule 34 exists of her for a reason.
Sure, true. But I mean, I'm gonna speak for myself, and I think I can speak for I'm gonna say majority of like just gamer guys. Is listen, we want a good game, and if we could have a good game with like an attractive character, male or female, cool. Like that is just a plus, right?
Yeah.
That's how I see it, at least. Because graphics, I mean, we had conversations in the past on the podcast about like stylized graphics versus realistic graphics, and like art styles and whatever, and art style and graphics are a big part of a game's success, but like it is secondary to the gameplay. Hello, like look at
should be,
but it is in current gaming, the gaming landscape. If you look at games like Roblox and Minecraft, like these are top tier, like top of the line games that generate a lot of money. Even I'd even throw Fortnite up there. Fortnite is not a pretty game. Fortnite is a very mid-tier art style. Yeah. Like it is just very fucking cookie cutter. Like this is whatever art style.
That's why they can like pump out so much content for the game.
But people play it for the content, for the gameplay. That's what really pulls people in at the end of the day. So, gameplay wins all day. But there was another point I was going to bring up, but it escapes me right now. But I think we illustrated pretty much everything we wanted to.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of us are against none of us here are against female characters being in lead
Absolutely
roles
not. Of
or
course not.
playable. It's just that, again, I'll speak for myself. It feels that there is a level of maliciousness in certain modern games that are coming out and how they are portraying women, and it just feels like we're in charge now, so get wrecked, you gamers. And it's just like,
one thing I do want to say though, it's kind of fucked up because this might be controversial. I don't know, but I'm gonna fucking just say it because it needs to be said. Men and women are different. One, two, we have strengths and weaknesses in different categories, and we're complementary to each other. That's just how we're built.
yeah.
So women have a natural beauty about them. And from my understanding, listen, I have female family members, I have female friends, female colleagues that I respect and want nothing but good things for. Would I think be on my side to say, yeah, I want female characters to not only be strong and smart in the their portrayals at least, be strong, smart, but also still have that feminine energy and be females. That's that's what makes them different from guys. Hello, right? So that's kind of fucked up that they're trying to shift the tide and redefine what a woman is, when I'm pretty sure 99% of women would disagree with that message. It just seems crazy to me. I mean, look at and I'm looking at the case for Street Fighter 6 because I've been playing that recently, and I think me and Esoteric had this conversation briefly when we were playing one night, and we're like, damn, the female characters look awesome. The characters in general look really good in this game, but a lot of the traditional female characters like Chun-Li and Cammy, they look great. They look better than they have, I think, ever in any Street Fighter or fighting game for that matter. Because they embrace the femininity of of females, and so the characters that not only are strong and are fun to play with and fucking top tier shit, these characters are really good. It's coming from a Blanka player, so I don't play with them, I get my ass kicked by them. Yeah, I think it's awesome that they've embraced that, and they also have ridiculous Marissa, the big buff French chick or whatever, who's a gladiator. There's what I'm saying is there's a space for all of it, right? You can do all of it, right? And it's video games, so you can have fun with it and have a little bit of everything.
And look at that Street Fighter. The characters are an art style. They're not photorealistic, so they can kind of exaggerate certain features. Again, it's the photorealism that is creating a lot of these characters.
That shit kills it, man. And these games are gonna age poorly.
Yeah, if you think Marissa, if you brought her over to fucking Naughty Dog and put her through the Last of Us filter, she's gonna look like fucking Super Saiyan fucking level 4 Abby. It's just not gonna be a nice. I'm sorry, just not gonna be a nice character to look at. It isn't. But in Street Fighter 6, she's strong, she's fucking huge, but because of their aesthetic choice, they can make her look super feminine while being having arms as big as kegs.
Well, she's pretty masculine, let's be clear, but she's still a female character.
Yeah.
And she still fits the universe or whatever, because Street Fighter universe is ridiculous. So it all.
Yeah, dude's like Dalsim exists, so it's
yeah. So anyway,
chill out with that fucking photorealism, hyper realistic shit, man. Can I go back to aesthetically different art styles, please?
Yeah, but the problem is there's a lot of casual gamers who like the photorealistic style.
There is.
Unfortunately, and so it's tough, man. You can't satisfy everybody, unfortunately.
You can't.
So I don't think the style is going away. I mean, it's just not going away.
It isn't. No, it's not. No.
They
gotta justify their PS5s and Xboxes. They
just reminded me. this is the last thing I'm gonna bring up. Fucking Ghost of Tsushima, right? Like, fantastic game. I remember reading somewhere that like the Japanese people were like disappointed with how ugly the character models looked, and it's like, and I didn't think the character models looked ugly per se. It was just like they looked realistic, and so it goes back to what we were saying about that realistic art style that kind of takes away from like the art part of it, where it's like, you know, it's too real. Yeah. I guess it's like
look at what Japanese game. If you think I'm on JRPGs and like us Eastern aesthetics, bro, that's all they grew up with.
Yeah, that's their main shit, right?
When they think samurai, they think Aroni Kenshin, and the women look very different in Aroni Kenshin than they do in fucking Ghost of Tsushima.
Yes, yeah, 100%.
And that's the same like time period.
So I don't know. It's just funny that contrast exists. I don't know. Yeah, the photorealistic art style is fucking whack. I think it works for certain things, but I'm so sick of it. It's so overused.
Yeah,
but anyway,
and it sacrifices gameplay. But anyway, yeah.
Unfortunately, but anyway, that was our conversation on ugly chicks in games, I guess, or ugly women in games, or ugly representation. I don't know what this title is gonna be. Like, I haven't thought of that yet.
Into like, you know, the two
art
camps going
stuff,
at it, and art styles. Yeah.
But that was the basis of the conversation. So yeah, there's that. Maybe you enjoyed this conversation. Maybe you didn't. Like if you did, dislike if you didn't. Comment down below. Let us know what you think. What's your take on it? Are there a band of ugly people invading the gaming development space, trying to make ugly people more attractive? I don't know. Possibly. I mean, there's a lot of evidence to support that claim. So I don't know. But subscribe for more content. We do podcasts every week, about an hour long. We publish every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. We cover a variety of topics. We have like 100+ episodes at this point. We do it every week, so we just talk about random shit. Sometimes we'll talk about stuff like this is controversial. Sometimes we'll talk about, you know, what's our favorite video games of this era or whatever. Some stupid shit like that. So if you like silly conversations like that, then subscribe. I think you'll enjoy our other content. We also do 2-minute reviews, shorts, long gameplay content. We just do all sorts of things here on this channel. We also have a social media influence. I use that term very loosely, influence. We have Facebook.
We have accounts.
We have accounts. Yeah, we do have those. We have a Facebook, a Twitter, Instagram, a TikTok, and we also run a Discord. We're looking to, you know, build a small community and you know, share our ideas across the globe, across the country, with like-minded gamers. We also, well, not we, but Mr. Esoteric, who isn't present for this particular episode, does stream on the main channel on Twitch, Logical Gamers TV. Check him out. He streams 2 to 3 times a week, and he plays a variety of games. Definitely check him out, give him a follow, and, you know, support the stream. With that being said, Gunner, thank you for a great conversation. This was a pretty fun one.
Yeah, it was a good one. I liked it. Yeah.
Dips and turns here and there, zigs and zags, as it were. But yeah, we'll catch you in the next one, man. Peace.
Next time.